My name is Lauren, and I have always felt that I am not like my family. I knew I was a letdown to my father from the day I was born. I could see the disappointment on his face when the doctor informed him that it was a girl, even though he had really wanted a son. The tone of our relationship was essentially established by that. The star of the family was Joyce, my older sister. According to my parents, she was intelligent, gifted, and impervious to harm. She was always praised by everyone. Have you heard? Joy's math test result was another A. Look at Joyce's beautiful painting. I was merely there in the interim. My crayon drawings typically ended up in the garbage, and my report cards hardly received any response. Growing older taught me how to look after myself. I worked alone to complete my homework, make my own lunches, and do my own laundry. Although it wasn't enjoyable, it strengthened and empowered me. At the age of 15, I experienced a life-altering event. After school, I decided to try baking cookies because I was hungry, and no one was there to prepare me a snack. To my astonishment, these turned out incredibly well when I followed a recipe from one of Mom's old cookbooks. I brought some to school the following day. When Hannah, one of my classmates, tried one, her eyes brightened. "These are incredible, Lauren," she said. "Did your mother make them?" With a smile, I said, "No, I didn't." Word quickly got out, and soon children were requesting more from me. I felt unique for the first time in my life. I had discovered my talent, something that attracted attention. I hurried home that afternoon, eager to tell my folks. You know what, Mom and Dad? Everyone at school adored the cookies I made. Mom's eyes hardly left her magazine. "It's pleasant, my love. Just remember to tidy up the kitchen." Dad scowled. "Lauren, cookies. Instead of wasting time in the kitchen, concentrate on your schoolwork." Even though their remarks made my heart sink, I was nevertheless excited. I was determined not to let anyone stop me from pursuing my passion. The distance between Joyce and me widened with time. Joyce received excellent scores in high school and was accepted to a renowned university. Our parents celebrated so enthusiastically that you would have thought they had won the jackpot. I was still in high school at the time, and I received mediocre grades, neither excellent nor bad. However, I had discovered my calling. I made cakes, pies, and cookies every weekend. Our neighbors soon began placing orders as well. After tasting my chocolate cake one day, Mrs. Megan from next door exclaimed, "Lauren, honey, this is incredible. You truly are talented." I grinned with pride. "Many thanks. After I graduate, I'm considering attending culinary school," I informed her. Her eyes glowed. "Oh, that's fantastic. You'd succeed." However, my parents' responses were very different when I told them about my dream. Mom's expression fell. "A culinary school. However, that is only cooking." Even worse was Dad's response. He struck the table with his fist. "Definitely not. I will not let any of my daughters squander their lives in a kitchen." "But Dad," I countered, "I perform well. People adore my baked goods." He sneered. "What the heck? Do you believe that flipping hamburgers or designing cakes will earn you a living? Lauren, get up. That is not how things operate in the real world." "Honey," Mom said quietly but dismissively, "you must consider your future. Take a look at Joyce. She is a finance student. She will have a legitimate career." I wasn't prepared to give up, even if their words stung. I began selling homemade baked items to my students and at school functions. It was an incredible response. My friend Michael exclaimed, "Lauren, these cookies are incredible," as he stuffed a chocolate chip cookie full. "You should open a bakery or something." I smiled as I imagined it, my own little bakery, filled with the smell of fresh bread and pastries. It felt like a dream. But at home, that dream quickly became a nightmare. One day, Dad found a flyer for my bake sale. "What's this?" he demanded. I swallowed nervously. It's for school. We're raising money for new computers. He glared at me. Don't lie to me, Lauren. I know you've been selling your treats. This stops now. You need to focus on real studies, not this hobby. But Dad, I'm making good money, I said. Money, he snapped. You call a few dollars for cookies money. Do you know how much your sister makes at her internship? That's real money. That's a real future. I bit my lip, trying not to cry. I just thought. He cut me off. No, you didn't think. Listen carefully. This baking nonsense ends now. You're going to get your grades up and apply to real colleges. If I hear about one more cake or cookie, we'll cut you off. No more college fund. No more support. Got it. That night I cried myself to sleep. My dream of culinary school crumbled like an overcooked cookie. The next day I started looking up business colleges. My heart felt heavy, but I was determined. Somehow, someday, I'd find a way to follow my passion. But for now I had to play by their rules. College passed in a blur of numbers, spreadsheets, and financial reports. I worked hard on my accounting studies, trying to convince myself it was the right choice. But every time I walked past a bakery or smelled fresh bread, my heart ached for the dream I had left behind. After I got my degree, I landed a job at a big company. My parents were so happy. I rented a small apartment, determined to live on my own. But day after day, as I sat at my desk working on numbers and reports, I felt myself slowly fading inside. One evening I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled out my old recipe book, its pages worn and stained from happier times. I decided to bake a batch of cupcakes, losing myself in the process of mixing and baking. The next day, I brought them to work. The reaction was immediate. "Oh my God, Lauren, these are amazing." My coworker, Sophia, said, "Where did you buy them?" I hesitated, then said, "Actually, I made them." Word spread fast, and soon people started asking if I could bake cakes for birthdays, kids' parties, and even weddings. At first, I took a few orders on the weekends, but soon I was spending all my free time in the kitchen. My little apartment was always filled with the smell of vanilla and chocolate. Then a big opportunity came. My company's anniversary was coming up, and the director approached me. "Lauren, I hear you're a great baker. How would you feel about making the cake for our anniversary party?" My heart raced. This was a huge chance, but also a big risk. Still, I couldn't say no. On the day of the party, I brought in a huge cake decorated with the company's logo and detailed sugar flowers. When I unveiled it, the room went silent. Then the director grinned and said, "This is incredible. Everyone give it up for Lauren, our accounting wizard, and apparently master pastry chef." The room filled with applause. The director even hugged me and whispered, "You're wasted in accounting, Lauren. This is your true calling." His words stuck with me. As more cake orders came in, I knew I had to make a choice. I was juggling 2 full-time jobs, accountant by day, baker by night. Something had to change. One sleepless night, covered in flour and surrounded by cake orders, I made my decision. The next day, I handed in my resignation. My supervisor was shocked. "But why? You're one of our best employees." I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. "I found my true passion," I said simply. I rented a small commercial kitchen and threw myself into my new business. It was exciting, but also scary. Some nights, I stayed up all night filling orders. Some days I wondered if I had made a huge mistake. But little by little, my bakery grew. I hired my first employee, then my second. We moved to a bigger space. Soon, my cakes and pastries became well known across the city. Through it all, I had finally found where I truly belonged. I kept it a secret from my parents. As far as they knew, I was still a successful accountant climbing the corporate ladder. I kept telling myself I was waiting for the right time to tell them the truth, but deep down I was just scared of their disappointment, their anger, and their rejection. As my bakery grew, I knew I had to step up. I dived into modern marketing, determined to make my shop stand out. I made social media pages for the bakery and posted pictures of my cakes, cookies, and pastries every day. But I never showed myself. No selfies, no pictures of me as the baker, just the treats. Even though I was nervous, the business took off. I teamed up with a local delivery service to reach more customers in the city. I also started a loyalty program, giving discounts to returning customers. Then I had a big idea: Sweet Tooth Wednesdays. Once a month, we opened our doors and gave out free samples to anyone who stopped by. The first time I was so nervous. What if no one comes? I worried out loud to my employee, Madison. She rolled her eyes and said, "Boss, have you tasted your own stuff? People will be lining up around the block." She was right. By noon, there was a long line down the street. Seeing people enjoy my treats made me happier than I ever expected. Our bakery became more popular than ever. Soon, we were catering fancy events, supplying desserts to top restaurants, and even shipping our famous cookies across the country. With success came money, more than I ever thought I'd make just from baking. As my dad once joked, I was making more than my sister, who worked at a bank. I started helping my parents financially but pretended it was from my accounting job. When their roof needed fixing, I paid for it. When they dreamed of going to Europe, I surprised them with tickets. "Oh, Lauren, you shouldn't have," Mom said, but I could see the excitement in her eyes. While I was growing my business and helping our parents, my sister Joyce was living her best life. She still lived at home and spent her paycheck on designer clothes, fancy gadgets, and self-care. But none of that mattered to our parents. To them, Joyce was still the star. "Did you hear about Joyce's promotion?" Mom would say proudly, "Vice president at only 31. I forced a smile. "That's great, Joyce. Congrats." While I was running a successful bakery, employing a dozen people, and making hundreds of customers happy every day, it didn't seem to matter at home. One day at Sweet Dreams Bakery, everything started like normal. I was in the kitchen adding the final touches to a wedding cake when Madison ran in, waving an order form. "Boss, you're not going to believe this," she said, eyes wide. I wiped my hands on my apron. "What's up?" "We just got an order for a birthday cake. The delivery address is," she paused for effect, "your parents' house." It felt like a splash of cold water. "Are you sure?" I asked. She nodded and handed me the form. There it was, my childhood address, my mom's name, and a note saying it was for her birthday. For a moment I couldn't breathe, but then an idea formed in my mind. "Madison," I said, trying to sound calm, even though my heart was racing, "clear my schedule. This cake is going to be my masterpiece." For the next week, I put everything into that cake, 3 tiers of Mom's favorite flavors, decorated with hand-piked flowers and delicate sugar designs. It was the best cake I had ever made. As I worked, I pictured the moment, my parents' amazement when they saw the cake, their pride when I told them I made it, and the happiness of finally showing them who I really was. The day of the party arrived. I showed up early with a small gift to keep up the act. The house was full of relatives I hadn't seen in years. "Lauren," Aunt Janice hugged me. "Look at you, all grown up, still crunching numbers." I forced a smile, the usual lie sitting heavy in my throat, yet still at it. I couldn't wait for my cake to arrive. Then the doorbell rang. Mom answered it, and there was our delivery guy holding the familiar Sweet Dreams Bakery box. "Special delivery for the birthday girl," he said cheerfully. The room went silent as Mom carried the box to the dining table. She lifted the lid and everyone gasped. Murmurs of appreciation filled the room as they admired the cake. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting for the right moment to speak. Before I could say anything, Dad cleared his throat. "Before we celebrate," he said in a serious voice, "there's something we need to talk about." The room went silent. Everyone turned to my parents, their faces full of disgust. "We recently found out something," Mom said coldly, "a secret that was kept from us." The tension in the room was unbearable. I felt frozen as Dad spoke again, his voice full of anger. "Can you believe it?" He looked around, pointing straight at me. "Our Lauren has been lying to us this whole time. She's not an accountant. She's a pastry chef." He said it like it was the worst thing in the world. I opened my mouth to explain, but no words came out. This couldn't be happening. Dad's face turned red with anger. "We always dreamed our daughters would be successful, respected. Look at Joyce, vice president at her age. That's something to be proud of." Joyce looked uncomfortable. She avoided my eyes. "But you," Mom said, staring at me. "We gave you everything, every chance, and this is how you repay us, by becoming an ordinary cook." That word, ordinary, hurt more than I ever imagined. Didn't they see what I had built? Didn't they understand? Suddenly, Dad walked over to the table where my cake sat. Before I could react, he flipped the box over. My beautiful cake, my masterpiece, crashed to the floor in a mess of icing and sponge. The guests gasped. "We're not eating this," Dad said. "It's delicious." Mom wondered indeed. "Lauren, you belong to us. You disobeyed us," I said. Then Dad said the words, "We decided you're no longer there." I couldn't breathe. This couldn't be real. I looked around, hoping someone, anyone, would stand up for me, but no one did. Even Aunt Janice, who had hugged me earlier, whispered to Uncle David, I always knew she was trouble. Others nodded in agreement. The room, which had been full of joy just moments ago, now felt cold and unwelcoming. "Leave," Mom said, her voice like ice. "Leave now and never contact us again." Tears blurred my vision. "Didn't you hear your mother?" Dad shouted. "Get out." Somehow I found the strength to move. I turned and walked toward the door, my eyes filled with tears. As I reached for the handle, I heard Joyce's voice, soft and hesitant. "Mom, Dad, maybe we should." But before she could finish, the door closed behind me. I stumbled down the front steps, the same steps I had climbed so many times as a child, but now they felt cold and unwelcoming. I reached my car, and that's when the sobs hit me. Sitting there, I felt like my whole world had crumbled. My dream that my parents would one day accept me had shattered, just like my cake on their dining room floor. I don't know how long I cried, but by the time the sun started setting, casting long shadows over the neighborhood I grew up in, I knew one thing for sure: I could never come back here again. The days after that party passed in a blur. I moved like a ghost, barely eating, hardly sleeping. The bakery kept running thanks to my amazing staff, but I was just going through the motions. Slowly, as the shock faded, I threw myself into my work with new energy. If my family couldn't appreciate my passion, I would show the world how great an ordinary cook could be. The bakery thrived. We expanded to a second location, then a third. Magazines wrote about us. I appeared on TV and even got a cookbook deal. Success came in waves, and I rode each one with determination. I bought a beautiful apartment, my own little safe place in the city. For years after my family disowned me, I met Paul. He was kind, supportive, and loved my cakes more than anything. A year later, when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was small but perfect. As I looked around at the smiling faces of my friends and the family I had chosen, I realized something. I didn't miss my blood relatives at all. These people, my employees, my friends, my husband, were my real family now. Life settled into a happy routine. The bakery continued to grow, and Paul and I built a wonderful life together. I had everything I ever wanted, except maybe closure. That changed on a Sunday afternoon, 5 years after that awful birthday party. I was in my office, looking over plans for our new bakery location when my phone rang. The number wasn't one I knew, but something made me answer. "Hello," I said. "Lauren?" My mother's voice, hesitant but clear. "Please don't hang up. We need to talk." Then she told me everything. The bank where Joyce worked had lost its license. There were huge layoffs, and Joyce had been out of work for months. They needed help. Before I could even process it, I heard my father's voice jump in. "You need to give Joyce a job at your bakery," he said. "As the director. Joyce has real business experience. She should run things. You can just be one of the bakers." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After 5 years of silence, this was why they were reaching out. A cold laugh escaped me. "Let me get this straight," I said. "You disowned me, threw me out, and now you want me to hand over my business to Joyce?" "We gave you life," Dad shouted. "We raised you. You owe us." Something inside me snapped. All the pain, all the anger I had buried for years came rushing out. "I owe you nothing," I said, my voice calm but firm. "You made your choice 5 years ago. I'm not your daughter, remember. I'm just an ordinary cook beneath you." I took a deep breath. "I won't be helping you or Joyce. Goodbye." I hung up, my hand shaking slightly. For a moment I just sat there, letting it all sink in. Then, slowly, a smile spread across my face. I felt lighter, like a weight I didn't even realize I had been carrying was finally gone. I owed them nothing. I was free. Just when I thought my family drama was over, life surprised me again. One quiet Thursday afternoon my phone rang. I looked at the screen, Joyce's number. I hadn't seen it in years. Feeling both curious and nervous, I answered. "Hello," I said. "Lauren." Joyce's voice was soft and unsure. "I hope it's okay that I'm calling." I took a deep breath. "It's okay, Joyce. What's going on?" What followed was a conversation that changed everything. Joyce apologized over and over for how our parents had treated me, both recently and 5 years ago. "I had no idea they called you asking for a job," she said, her voice shaking. "I would never have asked for that. I'm so sorry, Lauren." Something inside me softened. "Thank you, Joyce. That means a lot." She went on to explain how losing her job had been a wake-up call. "I realized I'd been living someone else's dream," she admitted. "Banking, finance, it was never what I wanted. It was always Mom and Dad's dream for me." I listened, barely breathing as my sister poured her heart out. "Seeing you follow your passion and build this amazing business, it inspired me, Lauren," she said. "I've decided to change my life. I've enrolled in interior design courses. I want to create beautiful spaces and be true to myself, just like you have." Tears filled my eyes. For years I thought Joyce had the perfect life. I never imagined she had been struggling too. "That's wonderful, Joyce," I said, my voice shaky. "I'm really happy for you." There was a pause. Then Joyce spoke again, full of emotion. "I'm proud of you, Lauren. You stood up for yourself, followed your dreams, and now you're living the life you want. That's amazing." I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. All the feelings I had bottled up for years, the hurt, the anger, and most of all, the love I still had for my sister. We talked for hours, catching up on lost time, sharing our hopes and fears. As our conversation came to an end, Joyce hesitated before saying, maybe we could meet up sometime. Just to talk, to support each other." I found myself nodding even though she couldn't see me. "I'd like that, Joyce. I'd like that a lot." Over the next few months, Joyce and I met regularly. We shared coffee and, of course, pastries from my bakery. We laughed about old memories and cheered each other on through the ups and downs of our careers. Her interior design business was growing fast, and I couldn't have been prouder. As for our parents, we heard from others that they had disowned Joyce too when she left banking. They told anyone who would listen that their daughters had disappointed them. One a simple cook, the other a foolish decorator. But Joyce and I knew the truth. We were following our dreams, building successful careers, and doing what we loved. We had found our own paths to happiness. One day, during one of our weekly meetups at my bakery, Joyce looked around at the busy shop. Then she turned to me with a smile. "You know," she said, "I think we turned out pretty great, all things considered." I laughed, feeling a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the ovens. "Yeah," I agreed, "I think we did." As I watched my sister sketch design ideas on a napkin, surrounded by the sweet smell of pastries and the happy chatter of customers, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. This was my life. Messy, challenging, but sweet. Sweet. I had fought for my dreams. I had lost some battles. But in the end, I had won the war.